explain the last bit of life before death. What effect does the state of mind you're in at death have to do with afterlife? If you are depressed or upset, what happens? And if you're at peace, what happens? See, death is not a movie that you're going to watch to decide which state of mind you're going to be in. You can talk about death this casually only when you're alive, when there is no imminent threat of death. This question so beautifully, so casually assumes that death just is there. I'm moving towards it. I know it's going to be 10 minutes before I reach death. Now, what do I do in these 10 minutes? What happens if I'm calm and relaxed when death happens? What happens if I'm agitated? I want to know. There are a lot of assumptions in this question. First is, you will know when it happens. The assumption is that you somehow know without any doubt just before death happens that you know you're going to die. You cannot know. How will you know? It's because you don't know when you're going to die. This whole question becomes irrelevant. If you know when you're going to die, then it's a valid question. Because you're talking about what happens when you approach death calmly, peacefully, or if you approach death in an agitated, disturbed state of mind. But how do you know you're approaching death? How can you prepare for it? This is the problem. It is because you can never be sure when you're going to die. You have to be prepared for it all the time. The only way to have any say in your death, how you choose to die, and what kind of afterlife you will move into, not the specifics. Nobody can determine the specifics. But you can at least have a sense of the atmosphere, the environment in which you are thrown into. All this, again, assuming that you're not enlightened. You don't know how to remain detached from your mind and body at that moment of death. So rebirth is inevitable for you. If that is the case, then what you're asking makes sense if you are somehow given an insight, especially you are chosen to know when you're going to die. Otherwise, you will have to reframe this question. You will have to understand the answer very differently. Firstly, death is not a single moment. That's another big misconception. We tend to think there is this one moment when you die, when death happens, when the disconnection happens. Well, if death is one moment, then there is nothing you can do about it. There is no way to prepare for death. There is no way to move into death with a certain state of mind, and there is no way to determine or at least have some sense of control over your afterlife. It is because death is not a single moment. If you know how to approach death, you can have great control over it, tremendous control over it. In fact, you will be surprised how much control you can have over your death if only you can start contemplating on death right from now, this very moment. You make death something that can happen any moment. Don't postpone the idea of death. Don't push it to the end of your life. Accept the fact. It's not even an imagination. It's a fact. Death can happen next moment. By the time you finish your question, you could be dead. Only when you bring death closer and you face it as a reality, not as a concept, not as a fanciful imagination. You cannot ask questions about death out of curiosity. I just want to know what I'm going to be. A butterfly, a dragonfly, a dog, cat. You cannot talk about death in such a casual manner because it is an important event. Because you're going to die. Something is going to fundamentally change. And it's hard to know what stays the same and what changes. Death is firstly not a single moment. It is one whole period during which the disconnection from your mind and body is happening. There is a part of you that is not wanting to come back and attach itself to the body. Either the body is damaged, it is struggling to stay awake, stay conscious. Body is the door. If the door is damaged, it's hard to pass through it. And if it is broken, it is such a door that you cannot pass through it. Just like your brain does not hold your memories. Your brain does not contain your thoughts. Your mind is a much bigger, much vaster phenomenon. And yet, if your brain is damaged, you cannot access parts of your memory. Because there is no way for the passage of thoughts. The reception is not happening. So body is a receiver. What is it receiving? What is it bringing from that other realm? What is the main work of the body? Body does not contain aliveness. There is no miniature you sitting inside your brain and operating the body. If we cut open your body, we will find everything except you. We will know nothing about you. Your personality. Did you like music or not? What kind of a person were you? What were your dreams? What were your desires? Nothing can be gathered from the body. What we can gather from the body is something extraordinarily limited. Something about your organs, something about your body functionalities. How was your digestion before you died? How was your breathing before you died? Things that are totally irrelevant to next life. Irrelevant to that essence called you, which is going to pass on, which is going to move on. That is why you cannot prepare for death when your body is weak, when your body is incapable, when your body is suffering. 1 hour before death, if you were told you have 1 more hour to live, that's it. You cannot start preparing for death then. You cannot say, oh, this 1 hour, I'm going to keep my mind very calm, very relaxed, and I'm going to think about those things I want in my next life. You can try it, but 2 minutes before death, all that vanishes. Your deepest fears, your greatest obsessions will resurface from the depth of your being. That individual awareness that you're trying to hold on to, the choice that you're trying to exercise will totally vanish. You can see this when people are dying. There is no dignity in death. There is no courage when you are actually facing death. Look what happens to the body, what happens to the mind just before death. It goes into tremendous shock. Your spirit is being torn apart, is being ripped from its home. And you don't want to leave your home. What you are leaving behind, the whole world of experiences, all that put together is your home. Now, the only way you can approach death with a sense of relaxation, a sense of calmness, is when you have already detached yourself from the world, when you are ready to leave. Ask yourself this question: are you willing to die right now? If a single thought crosses your mind, no, I don't want to die before finishing this, you're not ready. Because that will become so important at the moment of death that you cannot be calm. If there is one unaccomplished task that you want to finish before dying, you cannot die in peace. In fact, you should have finished with all those activities and you should spend quite a bit of time in a zone of emptiness if you want to die completely peacefully. Because even those desires that are not too obvious will resurface at the moment of death. You might have suppressed those desires. You might have somehow convinced yourself that, no, I don't have these desires. I had those desires, but I meditated for a while, and with the help of a teacher, I was able to go beyond those desires. It is only death, the actual imminence of death, that's going to decide whether that is really the case. Have you actually gone beyond your desires, or have you just fooled yourself? You can fool life, you can fool your mind, you can fool your body. You cannot fool death. It is an absolution. It is, in some sense, a moment of judgment you have to pass through. But who is the judge? Existence itself is the judge. There is no God judging. The judgment is not about what you are interested in, what you like, what you dislike. No. The judgment is about how attached you are to the idea of life that you're holding on to, because that is what you're dropping. How attached you are to something you are unwilling to let go. You are not yet ready to leave. That is what determines the movement. That is why preparation for death has to happen much before death. You have to move towards death before death comes to you.